What's going on, YouTube? Hope y'all having a good day. Mine got a little more disheartening. I'm coming home from work, listening to a little podcast about housing and some new reports that have come out. And like I said, I don't know if you want to call it disappointing, depressing, saddening, upsetting. I don't know whatever adjective you want to use to describe it. I guess the report basically is adjusting. With new housing data, median home buyer ages for first-time home buyers, all buyers, and things like that. And two stats stood out to me personally, like more than anything else, and that's obviously the first-time home buyer's age and the median. And it's a big point. I want to talk about in a different video about this. There's been a property tax argument that's popped up, and honestly, I don't know where I'm at on that, but it'll be its own separate video, I think. But the housing conundrum we're in here with basically everybody being priced out of home ownership in the United States, and everybody thinks of the American dream and owning your own home and things like that. Just watching a guy in a BMW absolutely run a red light. Sorry about that. Typical, I guess. But to cut to the chase, first-time home buyer, median age, 40 years old. And I don't know, whatever age you are watching this video, if anybody's watching, I'm 27. We bought our first home this year, so apparently I'm well ahead of what median is. So I feel pretty fortunate to be in that situation. But we also live in a low cost of living area, no cities or anything like that. And people are already pissed off enough that literally everything in their life has risen in price, and it's funny to watch things that are normally considered economic indicators, like, hey, unemployment's low, stock market's way high. I mean, today it kind of tanked a little bit, but on paper, everything's coming out and it's like, hey, look, everything's going great. And then you look at the real hard numbers of what the results are, I guess, and it's not great. For regular people are having some of the hardest times they've ever had since they've been recording these stats. These stats went from 1990 to today, or 1980, I'm sorry, to today. And I don't know if they probably just weren't tracking it before that, so it is what it is. That's what we have to work with. And I know there is a big argument about this housing thing where I don't want to get into it too much, and let me get a little off track here with the people that are like, oh, the younger generations just don't want to work hard enough. They're not earning it. They're not working hard enough. You don't deserve anything, which generally I agree with. Like, I like the idea, and I agree with the idea. I think it is a truth for the most part that if you work hard, you will succeed, especially in the country we live in and things like that. But there is, over the last 40 years, been a disconnect of that. And it's like the older generation always loves shitting on the younger one of like, hey, you don't want to work hard, and they bring up stats and like everything adjusted for inflation, like the home prices aren't that bad, aren't that crazy. And yeah, the homes were way cheaper when we bought them, but the interest rates were 14%, 20%. So it's comparable. And it's like, okay, great. But then when I look at the actual numbers, you guys in 1980 were buying your first homes, which would be like roughly the boomer generation, at 20 to 30 years old. Into your late 20s, you're buying your first home at 28 years old in 1980. Now it's 40. It's went up. I mean, what is that, a 33% increase on 30 years, 10 to 12 years extra? You're adding 10 to 12 years to people's like life cycle, in the sense of, hey, how long do you have to work before you can afford to buy your first home? And I don't give a shit if the interest rates were 15%, 20%, and then you come down and you're like, well, you guys just don't want to work hard enough. And it's like, okay, well, let's try to take that out of the equation and say, like, generally, yeah, is there people in this generation, the younger generation, my generation, that are being pussies about shit where it's like, well, I don't want to work, I just want shit handed to me. Yeah, but there was people in their generation that had that same thought process. It's not like a new phenomenon. This happens every single time. So overall, there's people that work hard. I would like to think I include myself in that group, and hey, it's worked out for me. But the number doesn't lie. If the median age is 40, the median age is 40. People can't afford it. If you want to say they're not working hard and just dismiss the whole argument, whatever, go ahead. But you're bound to end up with some angry people when their goal of home ownership, which is a huge goal in America, that is like a status symbol, that is the goal, that is the standard. People want to own their own single family home. And you're taking the goal and basically just being like, well, just wait 10 more years. And then the even more, like another interesting stat here is the median home buyer, not first time anymore, is 59 years old in the year of our Lord 2025. We are fucking blowing out of the water what the norm used to be 40 years ago. And in 1980, it was around 30 years. We've doubled the median home buyer. And the thing is, and I don't like the idea of just ragging on an older generation either, but I think it can be generalized pretty easily and with a factual base behind it, that we are living through a time never seen before where everything is done. The political class is all older generally. I don't know what the average age of Congress is anymore, but it's way up there. It's like 60s into somewhere in, maybe into the 70s, depending on what you're looking at. All the people in powerful positions in our governments and things like that are on the old side of things, which I can't fault somebody for pushing for their own interests. I guess that is what it is. And sure, maybe the younger people don't vote enough or something like that. If you want to come at it from that way. But we have the wealthiest group of people in the United States, the oldest generation, which makes sense. As you get older, in theory, your wealth would go up over time. That's fine. The median homebuyer being 59 years old is not the norm, obviously. Like I said, 40 years ago, it was half that, around 30 years old. 30 to 35 years old, roughly, in 1980. And we've doubled it. And the problem is, nobody can fucking afford a home. So you have this whole class of people, everybody that's like 40 and under, the millennials, basically, that, I don't know, that like to complain on the internet, I feel like, where they're sad sapping about how hard everything is. And it's like, yeah, it's hard for you guys and everybody under you. So you're not the only ones in the situation. That's just what it is. We're all living here. And it seems like the general direction we've been heading is the older generation. And like I said, I'm generalizing. If you're watching this video and you're like, well, I didn't do that. It's like, I'm not talking about you personally, obviously. But the stats bear it out that we are basically taking from the younger generations and weighing them down with decisions made by the older generations to pad their lives by the way of the social security, the safety nets, basically. The government spending just keeps going through the roof. Most of the spending is on entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all these things. That's who benefits from it. And that's why I want to talk about the property tax thing. Like I said, it'll be a different video, but if the median age of the home buyers is 59 and people that own homes are all on the older side of the scale, and we take property tax away, who's it benefit? The homeowners, which are the old people. And then the money that these property taxes go for, schools, for the most part, is what it gets funded out of property tax. At least in Ohio. I don't know about every single state, but I think generally that's what it's for. That benefits the younger people who are trying to have kids, get stripped away at the benefit of the oldest generations. And then we go, why aren't people having kids anymore? Nobody can fucking afford it, man. Nobody can buy a house. You're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, a fucking 1.5 bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment, and you're like, why don't you have kids? And it's like, nobody really wants to have kids when they're jammed on top of each other in an apartment. And you're like, well, back in my day, we threw 4 bunk beds in the water. It's like, dude, yeah, okay, so what? I grew up like that. My little brothers were in a bunk bed setup. I was in a bunk bed setup in my dad's house. Like, it's not that special, but people don't generally want to do it. And then when their cost of living has ballooned 40% in the last 3 years since COVID, meanwhile, we sacrifice everything we can to keep everybody's retirements afloat by just dumping money into the economy to keep everything riding off the injection of cash we keep just dumping into it at the cost of higher and higher interest payments, which will be at the cost of the youngest generation. How can you disagree with somebody who's like, dude, fuck this, the system's rigged? And it's like, I don't think I can argue with you, because I feel a similar way. And I'm coming at this I'm not really being weighed down in any way. So I think I can come at this from a pretty honest perspective. Like, I'm just doing my thing. Like I said, I'd like to think I worked hard or whatever, but I chose a good career path, chose a decent one, went to college, did all the stuff, kept the debt low, and then that's it. So I'm here. But a lot of people haven't done that. And yes, it's up to your choices and your decisions and how hard if you want to put the effort in and things like that. But overall, that's not going to win the argument when you come to somebody who's pissed because they can't afford a house until 20 years after their parents were able to buy homes, and you go, well, it's because you don't work hard enough. That argument's never going to fly because it's just going to get emotional and just shut down. Especially when and then we come back to the drawing board and we go, well, what if we cut the old people's property taxes at the younger people's expense? And what if we back the retirement age up, actually, because we haven't managed the money correctly, so you won't get to retire like how your parents did. Or if you worked a government job back in the day and you retire at 55, well, we're actually going to make it 60 now because we fucked up the pensions. And if you have a pension anymore, I guess that's an oddity these days. But it's like, since COVID is what really opened my eyes to this, was the first time I've ever seen this weird phenomenon of sacrifice of the younger generations to either prop up or at the benefit of the elderly and the older generations. I don't know if you've ever heard the story, and I don't even know if it's true. It could be just urban legend, but I do believe it's true. The Japanese tsunami that hit, what was that, like 2013 or something, Fukushima, the nuclear plant in Fukushima, when that happened, they had a bunch of elderly people, retired people, older people, volunteer to do this job where they had to go into the irradiated parts of the plant because they were like, hey, we've lived good lives, we're older, we don't want younger people going in there and then getting cancer and all kinds of other terrible things, so we'll basically sacrifice ourselves knowing we've gotten a good life out of things, and we'll do it to benefit the younger people. The older generation typically sacrifices its well-being for a better life for their kids, effectively, the younger. I hope to do that for my kid. I have a young daughter. I'll do things now, like I'm trying to start the 529. I'm trying to start general things to give her the best shot that I possibly can. Hey, maybe I don't have as much money to do what I want to do until she's older. I'll gladly make that sacrifice because I want to benefit my kid. Since COVID, we have done the opposite. Do everything at the expense of the youngest generations to benefit the older ones. And I don't want to get into it here, but I mean, it's everything from when they shut schools down. The kids all fail. They can't do fucking basic math. They can't read anymore because we're like, close everything down because it's dangerous. Well, it wasn't really dangerous for the kids. Now we know that, but it was dangerous for the elderly. Like I said, that's a little bit, I'll give you, it's a one-off, once in a lifetime, hopefully, type thing, but it is what it is. We have begun the trend, and like I said, the politicians are all old. They lobby for their best interest. They get Social Security to be inflation adjusted while you go to your job and you get a fucking 2% raise while we have 10% inflation. And you go, I can't fucking afford groceries. And it's like, well, sucks to be you, I guess. By the time you get to Social Security, oh, look, we had to back the age up, or we cut the benefits because we couldn't afford it because we mismanaged everything because we made promises we couldn't actually keep. Sorry, I guess so. But I think I've rambled on long enough. You get the point. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I've generalized a lot. I'm not talking about everybody just because I'm generalizing, but still, I'd appreciate it if you got something out of the video. Leave a like on it, subscribe, come back, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.